Welcome here. Take a breath before we begin. Not a rushed breath, not a forced one. Just a slow, honest pause where you arrive fully in this moment. This is not a lesson you need to memorize. This is not a test you need to pass. This is a space where you are allowed to listen without pressure, to think without fear, and to learn without judging yourself. You are here because something inside you wants change. Not loud change, not dramatic change, but real change. And that matters. Most people never stop long enough to notice what is truly holding them back. They stay busy, they stay distracted, they stay stuck in motion without direction. But you stopped, you chose to listen. And that choice is already part of growth. Stay with me now. Let the words come to you naturally. You don't need to understand everything immediately. Understanding will come later. For now, simply stay present. Most people think learning English is about adding something new to their life. New vocabulary, new grammar rules, new pronunciation habits, but very few realize that the real challenge is not about adding more. It is about letting go of pressure, letting go of comparison, letting go of the belief that you must sound perfect to be understood. There is a quiet tension many English learners carry every day. It shows up when you listen to others speak easily. It shows up when you understand everything in your mind but struggle to respond with your voice. It shows up when you replay conversations later, thinking about what you should have said. This tension does not shout. It does not demand attention. It sits silently inside you, shaping your behavior without asking permission. Over time, you stop noticing it. It becomes normal. But today, we are noticing it, not to fight it, not to blame it, only to understand it. There is a moment almost every English learner knows. A moment that arrives suddenly and without warning. You are listening. You are following along. Everything makes sense. Then someone looks at you and waits. A simple question, a casual comment, nothing difficult. But inside something shifts. Your thoughts scatter. Your chest tightens. Your mind searches desperately for the right sentence, the right word, the right structure. And in that search, everything disappears. This moment feels like a language problem. But it is not. It is a moment of control. You are trying to control the outcome before the moment has passed. You are trying to protect yourself from a mistake that hasn't happened yet. So your mind freezes. Silence feels safer than uncertainty. Not because silence helps you grow, but because silence feels predictable. And the brain loves predictability. Over time, silence becomes familiar. Listening becomes comfortable. Speaking becomes stressful. You become very good at understanding English, but very uncomfortable at expressing yourself in it. Slowly, a quiet belief forms inside you. Maybe I'm not a speaker. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels reasonable. You tell yourself you are better at listening, better at reading, better at thinking quietly. But what you don't realize is this: that belief is not describing who you are. It is describing what you have practiced. Silence, practiced repeatedly, becomes comfort. Speaking, avoided repeatedly, becomes fear. This is not a failure. It is a pattern. And patterns are learned, which means they can be changed. Your brain learns from repetition, not from desire. You can want confidence deeply, but if your actions keep choosing safety over expression, your brain learns that safety matters more. The brain is not cruel, it is protective. At some point, it decided that avoiding mistakes was safer than making progress. And at the time, that decision made sense. Maybe you were corrected harshly. Maybe someone laughed. Maybe you felt embarrassed when you tried. The mind remembers emotional pain clearly. Even when the moment was small, the feeling stayed. So the mind created a rule: don't speak unless you are sure. At first, this rule feels intelligent, it feels responsible, but over time it becomes a limitation. Because certainty in language comes after speaking, not before it. There is no way to feel ready before you use English. Readiness is built through use, through mistakes, through correction, through repetition. But the mind dislikes uncertainty, so it waits and waits. And the longer it waits, the heavier speaking feels. This creates a cycle. The less you speak, the more important speaking feels. The more important it feels, the more pressure you experience. The more pressure you feel, the harder it becomes to speak. This cycle is not personal, it is human, and it can be broken, not through force, not through pressure, but through permission. Permission to speak without controlling the outcome. Permission to sound simple. Permission to pause. Permission to correct yourself. Most learners think permission comes from teachers or listeners. But real permission only comes from you. The moment you allow yourself to speak without demanding perfection, something inside relaxes. The words may still come slowly. The sentences may still be basic. But they come. And that matters. Each time you speak, your brain receives new information. It learns that speaking is not dangerous. It learns that mistakes do not lead to rejection. This learning happens quietly, one small sentence at a time. At first, you may not notice change, but something is shifting beneath the surface. Your body reacts less strongly, your heart slows down faster, your thoughts stay with you longer, you remain present while speaking instead of disappearing into fear. This is not confidence yet. This is tolerance, and tolerance comes before confidence. You are teaching your system that discomfort is survivable, that uncertainty is not an emergency. Over time, tolerance becomes ease. Your focus moves away from how you sound and toward what you mean. You listen while speaking instead of judging yourself. Your attention shifts outward. This changes everything. Fluency is not about accent or speed. It is about attention. When your attention is trapped in fear, language cannot flow. When your attention moves toward meaning, language begins to move naturally. You start noticing something else. Most people are not waiting for perfection. They are waiting for understanding. They are listening to your intention, not counting your mistakes. This realization softens you. You trust yourself a little more, not because you became perfect, but because you became present. English stops feeling like a performance. It starts feeling like a tool. You accept pauses. You accept simplicity. You accept imperfection. And pressure fades. You stop rushing yourself. You stop comparing your journey to others. You stay with your pace. This creates trust. Trust in your process. Trust in your ability to grow through experience. And quietly, something important changes. You stop waiting. You begin. Not perfectly, not confidently, but honestly. And honesty moves you forward. This is how the first real shift happens. Not with force, not with pressure, but with permission. Let this understanding stay with you. You don't need to act immediately. Awareness is already working, and this is only the beginning. And from that permission, something deeper begins to unfold. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, in the background of your everyday moments. You may not notice it at first. That is how real change usually works. It does not arrive with excitement. It arrives with subtle shifts in how you respond, how you think, how you feel inside familiar situations. You start noticing that the fear does not disappear, but it changes its position. It is no longer standing in front of you, blocking the path. It moves slightly to the side. It is still there, but it is no longer in control. This is important. Many learners believe the goal is to remove fear completely. They wait for the day when fear is gone, when nervousness disappears, when confidence feels permanent. That day does not come, and it does not need to. Because growth does not require the absence of fear, it requires the ability to move with it. You begin to realize that fear itself is not the enemy, resistance is. The fear was never trying to stop you from learning English. It was trying to stop you from feeling exposed. Once you understand this, the relationship changes. You stop fighting fear. You stop judging it. You stop asking why it is still there. You simply acknowledge it. And then you speak anyway. This is where something powerful starts to happen. Each time you choose to speak, even while feeling uncertain, your brain records a new experience. It notices that nothing terrible happens. It notices that you are still safe. This does not erase old memories instantly, but it weakens their authority. Old experiences lose their sharpness. They stop controlling the present. You start responding instead of freezing. Not perfectly, not fluently, but willingly. And willingness changes everything. You stop rehearsing every sentence in your head before speaking. You allow words to come naturally, even if they are incomplete. This feels uncomfortable at first. Your mind still wants control. It still wants certainty. But now, you notice that urge instead of obeying it. You see the moment when you want to stay silent. You recognize the hesitation, and instead of pulling back completely, you take a small step forward, a short sentence, a simple response, a quiet attempt. That small step matters more than long preparation. Because each step forward tells your nervous system something new. It teaches it that expression is survivable. Slowly, your body begins to relax faster after moments of speaking. Your heart rate returns to normal more quickly. Your thoughts stop racing as intensely. You remain present for longer periods. Presence is the foundation of fluency. When you are present, you can listen while you speak. You can adjust your words naturally. You can respond instead of reciting. You begin to notice that communication is not about perfect sentences. It is about shared meaning. You notice how people help you understand. They wait. They listen. They respond kindly. Most people are not judges, they are participants. This realization softens something inside you. You stop assuming rejection. You stop expecting embarrassment. And because you stop expecting it, it appears less often. Your mind begins to reframe past experiences. Moments that once felt like failures now feel like practice. You no longer replay conversations to punish yourself, you replay them to learn. This shift is subtle, but it is profound. Learning becomes lighter, less emotional, less heavy. You stop measuring progress by perfection. You start measuring it by participation. Did you try today? Did you speak even a little? Did you stay present longer than before? These questions guide you forward. And as participation increases, confidence begins to grow. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Confidence grows when your brain trusts that you will not abandon yourself, that you will show up even when things feel uncomfortable. That trust builds slowly, through consistency, through repetition, not through motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel inspired, some days you feel tired, but commitment carries you through both. You begin to speak even on days when you don't feel ready. You respond even when your energy is low. And each time you do, your self-trust deepens. You no longer need to feel confident to speak. You speak because that is how confidence is built. This is a quiet strength. You stop comparing yourself to fluent speakers. You stop measuring your beginning against someone else's middle. You recognize that everyone you admire passed through this stage. They felt this hesitation. They made these mistakes. The difference is not talent, it is exposure. They allowed themselves to be seen while learning. Now you are doing the same. Your relationship with mistakes changes completely. Mistakes are no longer personal. They are informative. They show you what to adjust, what to practice, what to repeat. Without mistakes, learning has no direction. You stop trying to avoid them. You start using them. This reduces pressure even further. Pressure was never helping you improve. It was only making you careful. And careful learning is slow learning. Relaxed learning is faster. Because the mind is open. You start noticing that English begins to feel more familiar, more natural. Not because you memorized more rules, but because you interacted more. Language starts living inside you instead of sitting in your head. You begin thinking less about English and more in English. Not all the time, not perfectly, but enough to notice the difference. This is another shift. You stop translating every thought. You allow simple ideas to form directly. This saves energy, it reduces mental load. And when the mind is less tired, learning accelerates. You no longer rush. You no longer push yourself harshly. You respect your pace. This respect creates stability. You show up consistently. You practice regularly. Not because you are afraid of falling behind, but because you trust the process. Trust changes how effort feels. Effort becomes lighter. You are no longer trying to prove yourself. You are building yourself. There is a calm confidence growing now. Not the kind that demands attention, the kind that stays with you quietly. You carry it into conversations, into listening, into speaking, and something else begins to happen. You start noticing opportunities instead of avoiding them. Moments to speak, moments to respond. You no longer hide from them. You don't always take every opportunity, but you take more than before. And that is enough. Because growth is not about doing everything. It is about doing more than yesterday. You are no longer stuck. You are moving. Slowly. Steadily. And movement changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who can't speak English. You start seeing yourself as someone who is learning to speak English. That difference matters. Identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as a learner in motion, you act differently. You try more. You judge less. And this prepares you for the final shift. The shift where English stops feeling like a challenge you must overcome and starts feeling like a part of your daily life. That shift is coming. But for now, let this understanding settle. Let it work quietly inside you. You don't need to rush forward. You are exactly where you need to be. And you are moving in the right direction. And now, something final begins to take shape. Not as an ending that closes a door, but as a settling that brings everything together. A quiet understanding that forms after movement, after effort, after patience. By this point, English no longer feels like a distant mountain you are trying to climb. It feels closer. Not easy, not effortless, but reachable. You notice that the fear which once dominated your experience has changed again. It still appears sometimes, but it no longer defines the moment. It no longer decides your actions for you. You might still feel nervous before speaking. You might still pause. You might still search for words. But something important is different now. You no longer take these moments personally. Before, every pause felt like proof of failure. Every mistake felt like confirmation of doubt. Every silence felt heavy with meaning. Now, pauses feel natural. Mistakes feel temporary. Silence feels neutral. This change is not dramatic, but it is life-changing. Because the greatest weight you were carrying was not English itself. It was the meaning you attached to every small moment. You believed each sentence defined you. Each error described your ability. Each hesitation revealed your worth. And slowly, gently, that belief began to loosen. You understand now that language is not a mirror of intelligence. It is a skill. And skills grow through use, not judgment. This realization frees an enormous amount of mental space. Your mind is no longer busy protecting you from imagined outcomes. It becomes available for learning, for listening, for responding. You begin to experience conversations differently. Instead of preparing what to say while the other person is speaking, you actually listen. You follow the meaning, not the structure. You respond to ideas, not grammar. This presence creates flow. Flow does not mean perfection. It means continuity. You may still make mistakes, but you don't stop because of them. You adjust and continue. You correct and move on. And that ability to continue is what truly defines fluency. Fluent speakers are not people who never make mistakes. They are people who do not stop when mistakes happen. Now, you are becoming one of them. You begin to notice your progress in unexpected ways. You understand jokes more easily. You catch meanings without translating. You respond faster, even if your sentences are simple. Your listening improves because your fear has quieted. Your speaking improves because your pressure has eased. This is how learning accelerates. Not through pushing harder, but through resisting less. You also begin to notice changes outside of English. You are more patient with yourself in other areas. You take risks more calmly. You allow learning curves instead of demanding instant results. The mindset you built here begins to spread. You realize that the same fear that once controlled your English also shows up elsewhere, in decision making, in self expression, in opportunities you once avoided. And now you recognize it. You know how to respond to it. You don't try to eliminate fear. You move with it. This understanding gives you a quiet confidence that does not need validation. You stop seeking approval for effort. You stop needing proof that you are good enough before trying. You trust the process. Trust becomes your foundation. Trust that learning is happening even on slow days. Trust that consistency matters more than intensity. Trust that you will continue showing up. This trust changes your relationship with time. You stop rushing toward an imaginary finish line. You stop asking when you will finally be fluent, because you realize something important. Fluency is not a destination. It is a relationship. A relationship with the language, with mistakes, with growth. And relationships deepen over time. You no longer think of English as something outside you. It begins to feel familiar, personal. It becomes a part of your daily thinking, a tool you use rather than a challenge you face. You stop separating practice time from real life. English enters your life naturally. You think small thoughts in English. You react in English. You respond without planning. These moments are not perfect, but they are real. And real use builds real skill. You also begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who is bad at English. You are someone who is learning. This identity shift is powerful. When identity changes, behavior follows. You show up more confidently, not because you feel fearless, but because you feel allowed. Allowed to try, allowed to be imperfect, allowed to grow slowly. This permission becomes permanent. You carry it with you into every conversation. You don't need reminders anymore. You don't need motivation speeches. You simply act. And action reinforces belief. The loop that once kept you silent has been replaced. Now speaking builds confidence. Confidence encourages more speaking. The cycle works in your favor. You still have challenges ahead. There will still be moments of confusion, moments of frustration, but they no longer feel threatening. They feel like part of the journey. You understand that setbacks do not erase progress. They add texture to it. Learning is no longer emotional chaos. It is structured by experience. You also stop comparing yourself to others. You see fluent speakers not as reminders of your lack, but as proof of what is possible. Their fluency no longer discourages you. It inspires you calmly. You recognize that everyone's path looks different. Everyone moves at a different pace. And pace does not determine potential. Consistency does. You commit to showing up. Not perfectly, not intensely, but honestly. Honesty becomes your method. You speak when you can. You listen when you need to. You rest when you feel tired. You respect your limits without letting them define you. This balance keeps you moving forward without burnout. You no longer feel like you are forcing yourself. You feel like you are participating. And participation changes everything. At some point, you realize something quietly. English no longer scares you the way it used to. That realization does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives in a small moment. A conversation where you didn't freeze, a response that came naturally, a situation you once avoided but now entered calmly. You might not even notice it immediately, but when you look back, the difference is clear. You are not the same person who began this journey. Not because you learned every rule, not because you eliminated fear, but because you changed how you respond to yourself. That change is permanent, and it will support you long after this topic ends. Now, as this journey comes to a close, take a moment to pause again. Not to evaluate, not to judge progress, just to acknowledge. Acknowledge the effort you've made, the awareness you've built, the patience you've practiced. Nothing here required perfection. Everything required honesty, and you gave that. Remember this moving forward. Growth does not come from pressure, it comes from presence. Confidence does not come before action, it comes because of it. You do not need to wait to feel ready. Readiness is created through movement. Carry this understanding with you gently. Let it guide you when doubt returns. Because doubt will return sometimes. And when it does, you will know what to do. You will notice it, you will acknowledge it, and you will move forward anyway. That is real strength. Thank you for staying here. Thank you for listening with openness. Thank you for giving yourself the space to grow. This is not the end of your learning. It is the end of waiting. Keep going. Keep speaking. Keep allowing yourself to be imperfect and present.